Will do. I'm going by Apple time here. It's still not quite 4 o'clock.
Yeah, let's wait until. Let's give it another 15 seconds.
Okay. All right. I hereby call to order the Patton Township Planning Commission meeting for August 3rd, 2020. And due to the nature of the Zoom session, I'd like for us all to introduce ourselves. So I will go first. I'm Kate Domico. I'm the chair of the Planning Commission. Who goes next? Harry?
Harry McAllister, also a member of the Planning Commission.
Bill?
William Burnett, a member of the Planning Commission.
Jim?
Jim Payne, member of the Planning Commission.
I'm just going around my Zoom here. Rich?
Rich Schmidt, member of the Planning Commission.
And who else do we have that's on the commission here? Okay, I'm going to leave it to the township folks to introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Doug Erickson. I'm Township Manager. I'm wearing a mask because we're actually here in the meeting room with a few other folks.
I'm Nicole Pollock. I'm the Township Planner.
Go,
Alex Castrocini, Assistant Township Engineer.
Go, Steve.
I'm Steve Casson. I'm the Public Works Director and Township Engineer.
Betsy.
And we have Ken Soder's here with us also in the meeting room. He's the zoning officer. We'll put him on screen as needed.
Oh, so Betsy Whitman, I'm a supervisor here in Patton.
Hi,
Thank you.
Betsy. We've asked folks who are not the Planning Commission and not on staff to turn their video off so that the audience members know who's on the Planning Commission. Thanks. I think
Great.
we're ready to go, Kate.
All righty, then we are called to order. Are there any additional items to be considered for the agenda today? All right, hearing none.
For Cater 118.
Pardon?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
I think that was some feedback, Kate.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move to the approval of the minutes. The minutes from the Patton Township Planning Commission's June 1st, 2020 regular meeting and work session were included with the afternoon's agenda, as well as the July 6th, 2020 minutes. Do we have any discussion? Can we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve both.
I'll second.
Great, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? So moved. Thank you very much. At this point, we go to public comments, and residents and property owners may address the commission on items of interest, and I think we have lots of interest today. So
Well,
probably related to,
Yeah, if
Pardon?
people have comments about specific items on the agenda, we ask that they wait till those come up. If there are
Very
any
good.
general comments at this point.
And they just got started right now, the chair.
thank you, Nicole. So
Started to ask about
hearing none, let's move on to potential approaches to affordable housing in Patton Township. So the Board of Supervisors charged the Planning Commission with exploring possible means of addressing housing affordability in Patton Township.
individuals in the room first.
The board would like the Planning Commission to recommend potential means to address this issue. And it's a very complex matter. And we came up with some ideas around potentially allowing accessible dwelling units, and it's generated a lot of interest from the community. So Nicole, do you want to take it from here?
Sure. So as most of us know at this point, affordable housing is a complex and multifaceted issue. There really isn't a one-size-fits-all solution that's going to solve this problem for us. So given that the Planning Commission has been looking at ways to get more affordable housing in Patton Township for quite some time, we are currently looking at 3 different options. So obviously the big one that we're going to talk about tonight is potentially adding some duplexes to lots that are 18,000 square feet and larger in the R2 with the extra stipulation that they are connected to public sewer. But 2 other options that we are currently looking at is extending the mixed-use overlay district, or the MXD2, to other planned commercial district properties, or the C2. And we are also looking at different ways to do some inclusionary housing measures, because we really feel that implementing more than one thing at a time will kind of help us achieve the goal of getting housing that's a little more affordable and getting kind of more diverse housing throughout the township. So to kind of get into the duplexes in the R2, I want to make sure everybody is aware that the township defines a duplex simply as 2 dwelling units in one building. So that could be kind of a different range of things, and sizes could vary on that as well. By allowing it in the R2, it kind of helps almost sprinkle in housing kind of here and there into an area that already has established infrastructure and is already located close to public transit and different commercial areas and different employment areas. And it kind of helps integrate people into the township that way. This specific idea is reliant on the property owners. The map that was sent out to residents that show where those 18,000 square feet and larger homes that would potentially qualify, this would have to be generated by them. They would have to get a zoning permit and express desire in adding that second dwelling unit into their existing property, or if they wanted to do some other construction, it would just have to be 2 units in the one building.
Hey, Nicole,
Yes.
it was 18,000 square feet of property, not the house itself.
Oh, yes, thank you for that clarification. Yes, the size of the land was 18,000 square feet. Let's see. So at this point, we do not have anybody that has approached us to ask if they could do this, but that is how this would work, is the property owner would have to say that they would like to do it. And we just also wanted to point out that the minimum lot size in the R2 district is 10,000 square feet. And so we did kind of want to start with a kind of a more limited number to see how that would go. And additionally, 2 off-street parking spaces would have to be provided per unit. So if there are the 2 units, that would mean that 4 cars would have to be able to park off-street. Currently, there are approximately 130 lots that could qualify for this. And we did provide in the agenda a breakdown. Scroll down there so you can kind of see the actual breakdown of the R2 and where those lots are located. And I have also found out that only 1 lot out of those 130 is currently vacant, so they are all currently occupied. And some additional considerations that we should discuss tonight include owner occupancy and how we would want to handle whether or not the owner would have to occupy the primary unit. And I did include attachments to some of the minor changes that would have to occur in the language for the ordinance to allow this. And then attached with the original agenda were comments that we received prior to July 27th, which was Monday. And then we did open up that survey, so any survey results that we received up till noon today, and then any additional emails or phone calls that we have received, I think up till almost 3 o'clock this afternoon, have been forwarded to the Planning Commission. So we're trying to keep very up to date with the information that's being relayed from the residents to the commission to kind of keep the conversation ongoing. So at this point, Kate, I think we're ready to open up the conversation if you are.
Nicole, can you,
Yes.
can you summarize the survey results for us? I think that's
sure.
pretty good. It probably runs pretty concurrent with the comments we received too.
Have that, let me just get it here. So those of you that are participating on Zoom, and I'm not sure if the projector is showing this in the meeting room or not. So I believe these results were, excuse me. These results were as of about noon today. So we basically just asked whether or not people were in favor of this idea. And as you can see, the large response we're getting is no. And then we did ask for a lot of different comments. There were a lot of people that did provide their comments as to why or why not they were in favor of this. And then we asked the additional question of if we do not pursue this affordable housing option, did anybody have any other ideas as to what we could do? So I can scroll through some of that. It's a lot of comments, so I'll leave that up to the manager of the Planning Commission if they would like me to show some of the actual comments.
Sure.
Well,
Nicole.
I don't think so now. I think they were pretty scattered. I think there were quite a few ideas along different, very many different lines, and we can look at those going forward. Kate, if you'd like, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 folks in the room with us, I think, who would like to make comments. If you'd like to
I
hear
think
them
that would be
now, or
Let's do it
however
now.
you would like to handle it, Miss Kate.
I believe that we should open up the forum here to questions and answers and comments. So let's see, who should go first? I'm trying to manipulate my Zoom here.
Barry, if you would like to go first, I think you had your hand up first, yes.
Yeah, I just want to.
We need you to come to the podium and introduce yourself.
Look at this thing.
Yeah, can we stop the share on the screen?
Yep. Sure.
And then spotlight on the podium. And if you'd introduce yourself with your name and just the street you live on, we don't need your address, but your street, and then commence with your comments. Thank you.
Yeah, hi, my name's Barry Feinberg. I live on Oakley Drive. I'd like to know if we can get a summary of that survey. It was kind of hard to see off to the side. I'd also like to know if we can expect answers or responses to the questions we posed. My primary concern is this apparently has been going on for a while, and up until several weeks ago, I myself did not know that it had progressed this far. The only notification I got was the letter that the township sent out. And that I know it put me on my hind heels because it is a concern to me. I'm sure it put other people on their heels because it didn't give us time to do the research that perhaps we should have put into this. I've done some over the last couple weeks. And again, as you can tell, I'm not in favor of this zoning ordinance, the change, for several reasons. First of all, many of you probably don't even know or remember J. Alvin Hallbaker. I do. I was around when J. Alvin was here, when he designed, built, and marketed Park Forest. It was marketed specifically as a single-family oriented development. Not apartments, not duplexes, not low-income housing, not affordable housing, and I know this term is going to drive some folks crazy, Section 8 housing. It was designed as a family-oriented neighborhood. Bottom line, end of story. What is being discussed here today changes the whole dynamics of what we bought into when the residents bought into Park Forest. In my estimation, there are two types of families that buy into Park Forest. Myself, I've been there for probably 40 years of the probably 50 years that the development has been in existence. We've lived there, we've invested in our property. Unfortunately, we probably have one of the nicest houses on the street because we continue to invest in it. Our entire cluster of neighbors continue to invest in their property. This in itself, in reality, I don't care about the theory, how it's supposed to work, and in reality, it will change the dynamics of the neighborhood completely. We took a ride over to the affordable housing section behind Trader Joe's, just to see what people think is affordable and acceptable. That neighborhood, and not to be disparaging, is a mess. The dwellings are small, They're dingy, they're dirty, they're not upkept, there's trash and junk all over the lots. That's what I believe will happen if this ordinance is put through without any type of regulation, at a minimal, owner occupied. It can't be two-sided renter dwellings. It just can't be. You will change the dynamics of the neighborhood forever. I just think what you're trying to do is well, again, another term, social engineering. You're trying to place people into an area, a neighborhood, that perhaps they don't qualify for. And again, I'm not trying to be disparaging, but the fact of the matter is, you have to have a certain income level to be able to afford to live in an area. Doug, I would love to live in the area that you do. I can't afford it. Ken, I'd like to have a farm. I can't afford it. The closest thing I get to is working at a stable every day. But people can't social engineer what their beliefs are by impeding on the folks that have bought into a certain dynamic. And that's what I feel this rezoning will do. I looked at the ordinance that was sent out, or that was on the website, and the only addition I see to that ordinance in terms of regulation is somebody redlined 18,000 square feet, and they redlined duplex. How are you going to control the setbacks? How are you going to control the utilities? 2 dwellings, 2 gas lines, 2 gas meters, 2 dwellings, 2 electric meters, plumbing, sewer, water, all those things have to be consideration. And then the bigger concern for me is parking. We need to have 4 parking spaces in a driveway. In my opinion, most of the driveways in park forests will not accommodate 4 cars. My second point is this: people are traditionally lazy. They're not going to park 4 cars in the driveway, and then when the person who's parked in the closest to the house has to move, do you think they're going to be willing or want to get up every time to move their cars that are parked behind them? No, what you're going to do is increase off-street parking. You may think, oh, that's not going to happen. Drive through the neighborhood sometime. I live on Oakley. The street is not very wide. When there are people parked off-street on one side, 2 cars can't get through. When we have people parked on both sides, 1 car has trouble getting through. On Mondays, when trash is collected, there's an issue with getting down the street if we have people parked on both sides. Ultimately, you may say, oh, well, that's not going to happen. I guarantee it's going to happen. I live it every day. And there's nothing wrong with it, but to increase that kind of an issue because you think that this is the place to put affordable housing, changing single home into duplexes is completely, it's off the mark. It's just not realistic. There are many other options that are available. There's the PAD district, the planned airport district. People are concerned about noise. Burke's Homes has no problem with developing that area out there. They got a ton of new homes. They can't build them fast enough to sell them. S&A has townhomes, Kingston's Court, I believe, located right on the corner. They don't seem to have a problem with airport noise. There are a lot of developments out there that have very expensive homes. They also don't seem to have problems with airport noise. So for somebody to say, and I believe it was a gentleman by the name of McAllister, who pointed out that there might be a lot of noise from the airport, I think that statement's unfounded, and in today's world, not currently true. We live in Park Forest. We are right in the flight path of the airport right now. It used to be just smaller planes. Now we have jets flying over our house. It's the way things go. But to use the noise as a reason for not to develop that area out there that has a lot of open space it's not valid. There are also other areas that could be developed. There are a lot of open spaces. But I keep hearing this word inclusionary put out there. My take is this, and again, not to be disparaging, but I think anybody who works and is trying to pick themselves up and get to the next level, they're not going to care if it's in a modular home community, as they did in Chapel Hill. That was pointed out in the, I believe it was the May or June meeting last year. They're not going to care if it's a modular home development or an inclusionary, or if it's duplexes. That's not going to enter their mind. They're going to just be happy and want to get into an area that they can afford to be in. And in closing, I'm just going to make a statement that's probably going to, I don't know, it may offend some people. COVID-19 has rocked our world. It's rocked the world, the country, the center region. A number of people have lost their jobs, some temporarily, some permanently. I don't know if you read the paper, but the number of permanently unemployed people is in the millions. Unemployment rates. Have people looked at the unemployment rates? Is this the time to be considering to change the dynamics of the community for something that might happen? We don't know the future. We don't know how COVID will affect the future. The three largest employers in the county or in the region are having issues. Mount Nittany Hospital laid off administrative and staff and nursing staff. Glen O. Hawbaker laying off people. I mean, it just happens. Penn State is cutting back staff, reducing salaries. There are too many unknowns, too many variables to try to put something down on paper right now until we do enough research to find out where this whole thing lands. And it concerns me that this initiative is trying to be pushed through, again, kind of quietly, because as I said, up until this letter came out, I never knew that this initiative had proceeded this far along. And I consider myself an informed resident of Patton Township. So how many people don't even know that this is going to happen, that this impacts? I mean, I just think that there needs to be more thought, more neighborhood input, and that neighborhood input should have a huge impact on the decision that is made by the township supervisors. The Planning Commission is one thing. They're doing their job. They're just throwing out ideas. But it's township supervisors that are going to have to live up to this thing and own it if and when it happens. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate your comments. Bill Burnett, you had a question for the citizen?
Yeah, and just forewarning for everybody that's going to be coming up, I'm probably going to ask this of everybody, just for my own tallies. My question is did you support the buying up of open spaces and turning them into parks, or support the purchasing up of lands to take them out of development possibilities? I would like to hear your answer.
I'm sorry, was he pressing up to me?
If you'd like to answer, reply, you can.
It's kind of difficult.
His question was, did you support the township referendum to buy open space?
Absolutely. Personally, I think that should be on a referendum. If not on a survey to every Park Forest residents. I'm not talking about going out to people in State College on McBath Street who seems to have a way to get onto the Park Forest website and interject her comments. I'm talking specific Park Forest residents, not renters, the people on the deed, the people on the tax base. I'm not talking about the townhouses. I'm not talking about the condominiums. I'm not talking about the apartments. I'm talking about the people that this impacts, the landowners that have put their time, effort, and money into those properties.
So you did support the referendum. You did support taking land out of development for projects such as this.
Absolutely. You know what?
Thank you.
I think there's enough open space according to the zoning map that I was provided. that shows a ton of space. There's space out along Circleville Road that could be available if there was a land grant initiative put through. There's space along, next to the State College soccer field off of Valley Vista. I think it's the Haw Family
That
Preserve.
property's all reserved for no
Okay.
development. That's reserved to stay as it is.
There's property out along Grays Woods on the way to Grays Woods Boulevard, out towards S&A's new area, on both sides of the roads. Maybe we should think about extending the sewer boundary so Bob Poole and Dan Harbaker can develop the 200 to 300 acres they have beyond Grays Wood development that they're working on right now. You've kind of handcuffed some of the available areas that are developable and trying to pigeonhole this initiative into an already existing development with its own dynamics. It's just not right. Again, it's social engineering. Any other questions?
Thank you. Nope, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Delbert at Cole, since I'm not in the room, can you call the next person, please, to the podium?
Who would like to go next? Please proceed to the podium, state your name and the street you live on, and let us know your views.
Hey, good afternoon. My name is Keith Brodigam, and I live on Earl Drive in Park Forest with my wife Leslie and our 2 sons, and we're relatively recent additions to the Park Forest neighborhood. So I do want to say thank you all to the opportunity for providing comment on this proposal. Like the gentleman before, we were caught off guard when we received the letter in the mail, and I am very thankful that it was sent out and that you're providing this opportunity for us. I think that's very important that you're hearing from the residents, long-term residents, and also people who are new like us and just recently invested in living in Park Forest and the Patton Township. We have a couple of concerns, one of which is this seems to me to be conflated arguments, especially looking through the material online and the various posts that people have made. There's an assumption here that this will advance diversity and affordable home ownership, and that's not necessarily the case. Both of those are very important, but I don't believe that this proposal advances either in the way that it needs to. Instead, it rezones an entire township for the benefit of a few people who happen to own lot sizes large enough to turn their homes into duplexes and therefore increase their profits with the land that they bought. And they bought that land and those homes knowing that they were not actually able to turn them into duplexes. And so I share the concern that this is really at the expense of the larger neighborhood and township, and that it will benefit just a few people, but is being couched in a way that makes it very hard to say no, because diversity and inclusion are on the line, in theory. And the real concern that we have is that the demographics simply don't support this proposal. When you look at the census data available from just last year, you'll see that compared to the rest of Patton Township, Ferguson, College, and Harris Townships, that this is the most diverse neighborhood. It has the lowest per capita income, and it already has the lowest rate of owner occupancy at 57%. And it has by far the greatest population density per square mile. It has nearly 6 times the density of the rest of Patton Township, and that population lives within 2.4 square miles of Park Forest. We simply do not need more density in Park Forest. What we need are more affordable single-family homes. That's what's lacking. When we came to State College 5 years ago, we really struggled to find a single-family home that we could afford. In conclusion, we really feel that diversity is a center region issue and that it will not be solved by retrofitting something in to a well-established neighborhood like Park Forest. We would be happy to engage in further conversation about how to address these concerns, but we really feel that this proposal, while well-intended, does not do so. Our request is that this group and the members from Patton Township specifically really hear our concerns and those of the other people here in this room, and that we are saying no thank you to this proposal, and we ask you not to advance it and instead look for other opportunities to make a meaningful impact, which we would be happy to support. Thank you. Oh, and since I'm new, we did not participate in the other referendums.
I was just about to ask you that. Thank you very much for answering that. I know the people in the chat are going to be happy to move things along.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Next up.
Who would like to go next, please? Sure. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Georgiana Gallagher, and I live on Earl Drive in State College. I did not submit my document via email, but on Friday morning, I dropped off copies at the township office. Hopefully, you've received them by now. I am here because I oppose the amendments to the R2 zoning ordinance. Allowing duplexes in the established neighborhoods is not a feasible alternative for the following reasons. Number one, safety. Number two, changes to the existing dynamic of Park Forest Village. And three, the
Hold on a
economic-
second, excuse me.
Yes.
Why safety? Can you explain your safety?
Absolutely. And that's already been expressed. First of all, since purchasing my home, the lifestyles have changed. We have an increased number of automobiles per individual family unit, increased use of bicycles for commuting and exercising, an increased number of walkers, joggers, and skateboarders. Are the streets wide enough to accommodate the potential significant increase in on-street parking? Over the last few years, I have observed walkers and joggers using the streets rather than sidewalks. It was very disturbing to see an adult pushing a stroller, holding onto a dog's leash, and jogging off one of the side streets off Devonshire Drive. This past week, I observed a child riding a skateboard on Brittany Drive downhill to Devonshire. That's my one concern about safety. You may have heard that some people call Park Forest Village, quote, dark forest. That's another factor that may have a negative impact on safety when drivers who are not familiar with the area are maneuvering around a higher number of vehicles parked on the street, especially traveling at dawn and dusk. Lastly, we have experienced multi-year projects involving improvements on North Atherton Street. Are there future plans for the improvement of North Atherton Street? Will the township or other appropriate body address the traffic congestion in the 1900 block of North Atherton Street? As you may be aware, the restaurant has reconfigured the entrance to designate 2 lanes on their property, merging into 1 lane, and hired staff to direct traffic. And on occasion, I have observed police officers called out to direct traffic in the area of that restaurant. When we have...
But that's not why, okay, but that's not why we're here. Can you just limit your comments to the comments specifically to your Park Forest issue?
During lengthy construction projects on Atherton Street, drivers chose alternative routes to avoid delays. The common alternative is to travel through Park Forest Village, since there are parallel streets allowing drivers to leave the congested area, travel through Park Forest Village, and re-enter North Atherton Street in a less congested area. Once again, an increase in both vehicle traffic and drivers unfamiliar with Park Forest Village. Those are my safety concerns.
Thank you.
Next, changes to the existing dynamic of Park Forest Village. Prior to the purchase of our home, my husband and I resided in Toft Trees, a planned community. When we lived there in the 1980s, it was a combination of single-family homes, apartment buildings, townhomes, and condominiums. The development plan was in place from its inception. It was not retrofitted decades after homeowners made their decision to purchase a home in Toft Trees. Allowing adjacent property owners to convert their existing properties to duplexes is a significant change on many levels. Although property owners must obtain a zoning permit, there is no assurance certain design details will be required. As an example, a property owner on the corner of Park Lane and Park Forest Avenue recently expanded the ranch home on that property. A 2-story structure is now attached. You may be familiar with the property, and you may have received feedback from his Park Forest neighbors. To quote item
So,
4.
Georgiana, may I ask you a question?
Yes.
Would you be supportive of something if the nature of the home change to a duplex had to conform to what the community looked like?
I'm not in favor of duplexes.
Okay, so you're not in favor of duplex. There's nothing that we can do to change your mind?
I see a change to the existing dynamic.
Okay.
I see a
my
change
next-
to the aesthetic, and I see an
And
impact
your
on
time is
economics.
coming up. If I can ask you, did you actually support the funding of buying up land or open spaces?
I do, because I think that's an
Okay.
alternative. There are many building projects going on right now, some that are just in the talking phases that we're not even aware of. So plan it that way from the beginning. Do not try to retrofit a neighborhood.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Virginia, thank you.
Can you interject for a moment, please? Could Doug or Ken explain parking? What has to be provided as far as spaces? It was mentioned earlier where someone said someone would have to move another car. That's not true. as far as
Yeah, this
parking.
is Doug. Yeah, the proposal for single-family homes, you have to provide 2 parking spaces off-street or on the lot, that either one can be accessed without moving another car. For this proposal, we would require each of the units to have 2 spaces, all of which would have to be accessed without, you could enter or leave that spot without moving any other vehicles. So for the most part, if this went through and somebody was going to develop a duplex, they would probably have to add additional parking spaces on their property.
Thank you.
Okay. Are we ready for the next comment?
Can I address that last comment that Doug made?
Well,
I
let's
have a
make
couple
sure, let's
people-
see if anybody else in the audience here would like to make comments to the planning commission. Then we can go back and do second. Just as a note, we're here today to hear from the residents to see what you think. And so that's why we're asking everybody here to come in and let us know what you think. We're not actually debating the matter today, but we'll hear what you think, we'll see what the planning commission wants to do, and then we'll go from there, okay?
Hi, my name's Joe Lee. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak to you about this situation. I live on Douglas Drive and have lived there for over 30 years. I lived previously on Highland Drive for 3 years, and my wife has been a resident of Park Forest since about 1971. So we are long-term residents of Park Forest. Throughout that time, we've always lived in a single-family home, and I thought Park Forest was always a single-family home development. It always has been, except for there's one house on my street, 431A and B on Douglas Drive, which appears to be a duplex already. So my question is...
Pardon me, sir?
Yes.
Sir, it's hard to hear you. Can you speak directly into the mic, please?
If I could take my mask off, you could probably hear me better.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. There is currently what appears to be a duplex on my street, 431A and B on Douglas Drive, which appears to be a duplex. And I didn't know that duplexes were allowed. This is sort of strange that we're going through this when there already seems to be one on Douglas Drive. I don't know if there's any other ones in Park Forest or not, but I'd be curious to find out. One of my things, when I first saw that letter, obviously not knowing what was going on, I was curious as to why this was being brought up. Does anybody know who or why this was brought up? Is this brought up by some developer? Is this brought up for what reason? After 50-some years of Park Forest being a single-family home development, did we decide to make changes?
As stated in the opening, the Planning Commission proposed this as a measure to provide affordable housing.
But who in the Planning Commission is it?
The entire Planning Commission voted to forward this as a potential idea.
Okay. How about if we take an R1 development, maybe Homestead Farms, which has certainly well over acre lots? How about if we change that to an R2 and make that into a duplex area? Certainly, we could put maybe 3 duplexes on each of those acre and a half properties. I mean, those people wouldn't appreciate it any more than the people that live in Park Forest. So where do you make the end point of saying, all right, this is what we're going to do to this particular development, but we're not going to touch these people over here because they have nicer houses and bigger lots and more expensive property. I don't see where this is going to help improve property values in Park Forest. I think that one of the things that people that live in Park Forest enjoy about Park Forest is the property values being a single-family home and people taking care of their own properties. If I could have my way and wave my magic wand, I would say we should have a limited number of rentals in Park Forest, simply because the rental properties seem to have soared over the last 30 years that I've been there, and people that take care of rental properties, both the owners and the occupants, don't seem to take the same kind of pride in the people that live on Oakley and have a very nice house take into consideration. So that would be, if I can throw something out there, I'll be happy to say that. I'm opposed to it. I think that taking a idea and retrofitting a neighborhood, it just isn't right, isn't fair to the people that have invested the time, energy, and money into their homes to have something that potentially downgrade their property values. I'm not saying that people that don't have the income of the people in Park Forest shouldn't deserve a place to live, but there's certainly enough open areas in the Patton Township, in the center region, actually, in all the little areas that they could develop and have more affordable housing for people. So that's my comment. You're going to ask me the question, was I in favor of open spaces? And I'm curious as to why you're asking that question.
Well, I mean, here's the problem. We've sort of run into a dichotomy where we're buying up all the open spaces and we don't want to develop any housing. We don't want to develop any high-density housing. I have said multiple times that if we can't have both. We can't have open spaces and not high-density housing. So I'm just asking the community and asking you as a member, because you are against this. And just really quick for everybody else, this isn't directed directly at Park Forest. This was overall for all of the size lots in the area. If I'm not mistaken, correct, Nicole? We chose 18,000 square feet as the start point and started talking. So this is not just Park Forest. This is actually all R2s that are over 18,000 square feet across Patton Township. So it's not directed at Park Forest. Yes, you have a couple of properties that are there, but that's where we started. And also, we were directed by the Board of Supervisors to come up with plans, and this is just one plan that we came up with.
And is R1 going to be possibly rezoned?
I think everything's possibly being rezoned. For, that all discussions have been on the table about this.
All right. I don't see where they're mutually, whether you supported open spaces or not, doesn't interfere with the condition of, I bought a single-family home in a single-family development developed over 50 years ago, and that's what I want. I want it to stay that way. So, I'm in favor of open spaces as well, but I'm also in favor of my development staying the way it is.
I understand that, yeah.
So,
go ahead.
if I may, we asked the township staff to benchmark against similar sized communities with similar demographics across the country, and their approaches to affordable housing. This was one big purpose, and so we decided to explore it.
Well, I appreciate you bringing that to everybody's attention. I think the exploration shows that nobody's really in favor of it.
Thank you.
Nobody I know. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
And one other comment, someone mentioned the airport earlier. The planned airport district is also being looked into by the Planning Commission. That was also tasked by the Board of Supervisors, Planning Commission.
Yeah, and on Douglas Drive, I could bring the planes in with a flashlight. They fly right over my house, and I actually enjoy the sound of the jets, so I'm cool with it. But it's not a problem.
Yeah,
for me.
I've got the planes going right around my property as well. So, I mean, it's, that's an FAA issue.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Doug, is there anyone else in the meeting room who wants to speak? And if not, we can move on.
I have people that entered in the chat box that want to talk via Zoom.
Okay, I'll take you ahead.
So the first person was Mr. and Mrs. Cook, Caleb and Sarah. Do you want to go ahead and address the Planning Commission?
Hey, everybody, yes, we're going to start speaking until we see ourselves highlighted, I guess. Can everybody see us?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. That's great, perfect. So thank you for the opportunity. I am hearing myself as like some feedback.
Sounds like the CNET needs to mute him.
You need a spotlight, highlight the speaker, you can't use the highlight
Testing?
speaker. You have to spotlight them.
I gotta find them.
Okay, I think we should be good.
It was fine, but then.
Okay, I just really quickly, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My wife and I have lived out on Fox Hill Road for about 5 years now. We did send in an email kind of giving a little bit more feedback as far as we're young professionals, both just turned 30, really trying to get our feet under ourselves. And we're really excited that we had a friend let us live in their basement for free for a year to save up to buy our home. I know we had many people who spoke about the idea of being in a community and watching it change over the last 20 to 30 years. And I personally would like to say that I'm thankful that there are people who are willing to see a little bit of change take place so that young professionals can actually get their foot in through the door. In the last 5 years of owning our home on Fox Hill Road, our property has appreciated almost $80,000. That is a huge property value increase. And I would even say from a kind of United States wide, that's almost impossible to get. When you talk about property value, there's a lot of things, the community, the type of people you're around, how you treat your home. We got into our home, we treated it really well. We were very excited about, being able to one day turn over the home and sell it or rent it out. We're young entrepreneurs. We are excited about this proposal. We are very much in favor of the proposal. We'd like to build a breezeway and turn our 2-car garage into a mother-in-law suite that we can rent out. A couple of really quick points. My wife got breast cancer last year. She is now staying at home, taking care of our 2 kids full time. I work at the university in a professional position and have worked at the university for 7 years. And so I would put us in the category as the young, the first gentleman spoke. We're very interested in succeeding here in State College, but sometimes life doesn't always hand you the best hand cards. If it were not for close friends in our church supporting us, we would have had to have left. We care about this place. We also care about housing people and supporting them, giving them a chance to get their feet underneath themselves, getting a rental opportunity where we can actually make a little bit of money on the side. We see that as a win for everyone. While that might change the community, I think that the planning committee has brought up a couple of different things that will limit the ideas that like trash will just be going down the street. And as I understand it, the zoning and this committee has worked very hard, and I see that our communities look great. And a lot of people are, I think, working very diligently to prevent this from getting out of hand. But with COVID, I think we do have to evolve a little bit. I think we have to understand that people are looking for opportunities, and State College is a place that provides opportunities for young professionals particularly. If we want to see them come and thrive here without getting in intense debt, we have to give them options of housing that's affordable. we have to allow for young professionals like ourselves to also start investments. I would love to invest creating rentals, but I don't have what it takes to buy single-family homes or multiplexes at this point. Would love to get there down the road at some point, but yeah, I think cost of living is something that has to be brought up. You know, young professionals needing a space here in State College, and you know, I would ask just anybody who would say no against this, how long have you lived in your home? How much is your home worth? Have you paid off your home? I know a gentleman was talking about a deed. Well, not everybody has their deed. Some people are still paying off their homes. And we have to consider everyone during a time like this, during a pandemic, and what ways can make it more affordable.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you the same question that I've asked everybody else.
Yeah,
Where are you for?
I love parks. I love spaces for our family. But I think when you think about what State College is, it's a hub for opportunity. And that means people should be able to come here and thrive here. And that means that that space should be able to be turned into an investment opportunity for those who are looking to get ahead in life.
Thank you, Mr. Cook.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Who else would like to call?
I have Zachary Larson who would like to speak.
I'm going to move this here too, just so I'm looking at the camera. So thank you for your time. I sent a letter earlier, and so I won't try to dwell on things too much. Everything okay? Anyhow, I will not try to dwell on things too much. If there's any point I want to emphasize, I guess first off, I'll say regarding living next to a rented property, I've seen it all. I've seen everything from weeds that are as tall as I am, trash, fights in the yard, calling the police for parties, parking in front of my yard and damaging my yard. I've seen it all. And a lot of those things can happen with rentals. And I think in the case of a duplex, duplexes are constructed with the primary intent that you're going to rent them out. Even if you may live adjacent to one, I don't see how some of these smaller units are these smaller homes, less than 2,000 square feet, are going to be broken into even smaller ones and not have both units rented out. Most people are trying to make their homes bigger in this neighborhood, not make them smaller. So I foresee most of these units being rented out. I think anything otherwise is a dream. So I've seen everything on the negative side, and what makes it worse, if there's any promise of enforcement out there, I'm constantly hoping that I get some sort of enforcement for the properties adjacent to me. There's a picture enclosed. I have multiple violations that are occurring at any given time, and there's just very little of the township coming and doing anything about it. So if we're saying, well, we're going to have these rules about street parking, rules about potentially having one of the occupants of the duplex owner. We have the ordinances for weeds, and we have the ordinances for unregistered vehicles and all these other things. I don't see any enforcement of that in this neighborhood. And it's not just the person next to me, it's other houses with multiple violations throughout the township. So I don't see that as being this realm that's going to work. Doesn't at this point in time. And then looking forward to what's this going to do in terms of adding units. You're looking at adding 130 units, maximum. Realistically, pick a number. Is it half? So you're going to add 60 housing units throughout the township. I mean, we have places where we stick 60 housing units on 5 acres. Look at Mary Ellen. You can stick, there's 75 units on 10 acres for some of the Copper Beach properties. It's not like we're going to gain a whole lot by this proposal. I think the downsides are tremendous for those select few that may have a lot of issues with rental. And one of the things that hasn't been noted yet, we're asking about affordable housing. I mean, I guess it's affordable that you think you're going to add to the supply of housing by what could be a very marginal amount. there's seem to be no guarantee that this housing is going to go to those in actual need of affordable housing as opposed to just the general housing. With being mostly small units is probably going to be just very competitive on the student housing market. I don't see how you're actually helping out people with this. And honestly, too, if we get into a status where, stat where we have mostly properties that could be owned by property management firms, investors, the beneficiaries of owning that property may not be Patton Township residents. So it seems to be kind of hurting both ways, that the beneficiary may not be here, and even in terms of student housing, the resident may not be here. So those are things that I've kind of seen with the issue. I think the gains can be very marginal. I think the cost could be great to some. In the reference about open spaces, I did advocate for open spaces, particularly agricultural land, because we only have so many acres of suitable arable land in certain areas. In regards to parks, no, I voted against parks. Personally, I think we have a ton of parks. We spend a lot of money managing them. And if the use was bad, I would be in favor of taking those out of the use of park to putting single homes on for whatever is appropriate housing. So I think I can end there. Thank you for your consideration.
So, Zach, actually, thank you for sort of sparking an idea. I'm not sure. I mean, this is obviously not doing well with the Patton Township residents. But I guess we can look at taking parks away and turning them into housing and see if that gets even worse ratings than this did.
It probably will to me, but I'm sure there's many underutilized parks in this township. We have a lot of them per square mile.
But I actually thank you for saying that you are for the farming land, because that is something that sort of does hit me near and dear, is making sure that we still have farms available and good farms, good farming land. Thank you for your comments. I mean, anybody who's saying that I'm cross-examining you, yes, I am, but I'm looking for an answer. I'm looking for an answer for myself. I want to see why you're against something, and I want to test my biases against yours and see if I can find a better answer for Patton Township than what's currently on there. So, Zach, thank you very, very, very much.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Zach. I understand that Berna Kale would like to comment.
Hi, thank you for listening to my comment. I just wanted to sort of reiterate some of the things other people have been saying, but also respond specifically to Caleb, who is the one person, I guess, who has been in favor of this. And I just thought it was really notable that he said he's in favor of it because it's an investment opportunity for young professionals. And I know that when I moved to State College 3 years ago, we were looking for a place to live. My position, I wasn't sure if I was going to stay here a year or if I was going to stay here a lifetime. And so my husband and 2 kids and dog, we were looking for a good place to live. We couldn't find a rental that was suitable for us in our price range. Single family home rentals, townhome rentals, duplexes, it caters to a student market, unacceptable for families. It was extremely difficult to find a place to rent. So I understand this question of affordable housing, but what happens in this town, anyone who's ever tried to buy a house in this town knows that investors come in and they buy up these properties and then they rent them for those exorbitant rates. And with the tiny number of houses in Park Forest that would be eligible, that's what would happen. Suddenly you would have these investors, investment opportunities, buying up these homes. We bought a house because it was more affordable to pay a mortgage than to pay rent in this town for the kinds of single family homes that you have in Park Forest. So I think that what you would get if this proposal goes through is more of that, and you would also mess up the unique character of this affordable neighborhood where you can buy a single-family home for less than you can rent in this bizarre and abominable local real estate market. And so I just wanted to emphasize that I have the same concerns other people, but I also have concerns about affordable housing. And I don't think this proposal is not going to help the things that you say it's going to help. And I think Keith earlier in his comment, he gave some real census data that I think that the Planning Commission should go back and look at and think, what am I really trying to accomplish, and is this proposal going to accomplish it? I don't think it will, but I do see the possibility for professional real estate developers out of state coming in, renting to who knows who, and not enforcing the codes about parking and things like that. There's also a concern that, in this town, when you have football games, in a non-COVID time, there are people who can pay their whole mortgage just renting their homes on football weekends. We don't need Airbnb duplex party houses in Park Forest either, and that's another concern that hasn't been raised yet. So I just wanted to throw that out as well. So I see lots of problems and not a lot of solution to the affordable housing problem. I think we need to think of some other solutions.
Thank you. Thank you. Doug and Nicole, we have someone on the line, on the phone.
Yep. We'll see if we can get this to work. We'll put you on speaker.
And just really quick, we can actually discriminate against students. We can actually prevent students from these being turned into student rentals. That's not a protected, being a student is not a protected class, and rental permits can be set up so that it's not student housing if that is a concern.
Go ahead. Speaker on the phone.
All right,
Caller
if you
on the
would,
phone,
please.
go ahead.
What was that?
Go ahead.
I don't think he can hear you.
Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Okay.
Give us your name, please.
J.C. Marshall McKelvey.
Okay, please proceed.
West Hillside Avenue.
Okay.
What's the name?
Please provide your comments.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Okay. Hi. So thank you for giving us the chance to speak about the issue today. And I'd like to speak in opposition to the zoning changes. First and foremost, I want to bring up the threat posed to the environment. Park Forest is remarkable as an area where in a residential neighborhood, we've been very successful in preserving a lot of natural forest land, a lot of wildlife habitat, and intact ecosystems that are not found in a lot of developed areas. And anything that allows developers to try to, start over redoing some kind of new project on existing lots is a threat to that habitat. It's a threat of harm to the environment, of harm to our wildlife. Many of those lots that meet the size requirements are that big because they have attractive forests. Given the behavior of developers in most situations, anyone allowing a commercial investment in building a duplex or any kind of new building on those lots is playing with the risk of those people just clear-cutting everything. Even, of course, the actual buildings will impact the amount of vegetated land available. The parking requirements will make it worse because it's just turning more land into impervious paved over surfaces, which, by the way, also contribute to flooding, which is a constant problem for our neighbors across the street from the runoff. The traffic, of course, will be not just annoying or a nuisance, but a hazard to wildlife, to pets, to children that play on our street. And I think this has the potential to be very damaging to, to chip away further at an environment that's been able to allow a refuge for wildlife even within areas that are disturbed by development. And I think it's also very ineffective and even actively counterproductive as an affordable housing proposal. I've seen the neighborhoods around here that have duplexes. They're not affordable, they're corporate housing. And what it will, the effect, whether it's actual duplex construction, which would be a disastrous impact, or just rentals of the Airbnb variety, the effect will be to encourage financial speculation by outside investors that will make housing in Park Forest not more affordable, but less affordable. And it will be a threat to all of the existing renters in Park Forest because all of the landlords will see the opportunity to kick them out and try to profiteer on some new project. And I think it's kind of absurd that we're to try to see affordable housing brought up as a justification for policies that are damaging to the environment. There are endless acres of literally flattened, paved over parking lots around all of the commercial areas on North Atherton that could accommodate way more than any proposal of this kind could ever have done. Way more housing, more affordable, more, and without the, increasing the footprint on the land the slightest bit. And so I think it's outrageous that there's any proposal to chip away at wildlife habitat within our neighborhoods and expose our neighborhoods to all the damaging effects of speculation by developers, or to encroach any further on open spaces beyond the existing neighborhoods. None of those things are necessary. It won't create affordable housing. It will create financial speculation and commercialism, and it will be a dangerous attack on our environment that I don't think anyone here should stand for.
Hey, Casey, this is William Burnett speaking. Thank you for your comments. I assume that you're very much for the open land initiatives of buying up those lands and everything like that. I would also like to point out to make a statement to everybody, we are looking also at rezoning the commercial so that it becomes a hybrid instead of just being a commercial zone, that it would also be a commercial zone with housing above it. So yes, we are looking at that as well. And I actually
I think that should be the focus of any conversation on the affordable housing issue, and should not, and that nothing threatening our open spaces and our neighborhoods that are still able to sustain some kind of natural environment should be proposed.
Casey,
it should be focused only on the commercial areas, and I would also raise that should be focused not just on whatever is zoned commercial, but only on commercial areas that are already developed. There should not be any open space, existing open space or habitat, however it's zoned, that's touched. The actual incredibly inefficient flat box stores and parking lots alone are, space for a project on a scale that would dwarf anything like this. And
this is Jim Payne.
I think it's absurd that we're dealing with this kind of threat to the environment and to our community, as if that's like contributing something when that sort of commercialized strip environment was tolerated.
Jim?
Thank you.
I have a couple of requests. Number one is we need a time limit on comments because there's 20 some odd people still in the chat room. We're going to be here till 9 o'clock otherwise. The second is if you send in a letter or an email, we have your comments already. So I'm sorry, but what I've read so far, I don't want to be listening to it again also. I've already read it. That would be appreciative. We do have your letters or emails if you sent them in. That's it.
Thanks, Tim. I apologize for this. I should have started out this conversation by asking township staff to do a brief primer on what we mean by affordable housing. Nicole, can you kind of frame that up a little bit for us, for the audience on what we're talking about here?
Sure. So most of our discussions to date about affordable housing, we're looking more for, it's kind of more considered middle housing, I would say, kind of from the 80 to 120% of the area median income. So we're not necessarily looking at Section 8 or subsidized housing or anything like that. Most of the ideas that we're currently exploring are just how to integrate some new housing into the area that a little bit more people could afford to live here rather than having to live outside the region, such as in Bellefonte or Port Matilda or somewhere, that if you work for the university or if you work in the area, that you can, you know, come be a part of our community and be integrated into the existing infrastructure. So it's difficult because affordable housing is such a blanket term, but what we're after is kind of more considered to be like middle housing, if that helps. Kate, is that kind of what you were looking for?
Yes, thank you. And so when we were talking about duplexes, we were talking about accessory dwelling units primarily, correct?
Yeah, that's kind of where this, I think, kind of came from a little bit, because we were discussing the idea of allowing accessory dwelling units, and then the way the township defines duplex is sort of a variation on that, but it's a little bit more limited. So rather than opening it up to allowing an accessory dwelling unit of any type, duplex is a little bit more limiting because it has to be a part of the main structure.
Right, and we were also talking about requiring owner occupancy.
I mean, that was the suggestion. Currently, the township doesn't regulate that, but if we wanted to make that part of the stipulation, if we were to move forward with allowing the duplexes in the R2, then that would have to be part of the discussion as well.
Thank you. So, you know, as mentioned earlier, we're just looking at various alternative approaches to how we could address this issue in the center region and specifically in Patton Township. And I think this is a really great conversation. It's really great to hear people speaking so passionately about what's important to them. So thank you. And I think we have more people in the queue, is that correct?
I'm looking through. If I have missed anyone, can you please put your name in the chat box?
Barry, if you make it short.
I will make it short. I don't want to keep that.
We have one person here in the audience who'd like to make another comment. Barry Feinberg, who's spoken also currently before.
To summarize what I'm hearing.
We have one more then after that. Go ahead.
Ready? I'll make this short. To summarize what I'm hearing is that the only determination right now is the lot size, 18,000 square feet. There's no discussion about pervious versus impervious. There's no discussion about setbacks. There's no discussion about what you do with the open spaces and the yards. From what I'm hearing, you intend to allow people to pave their front yard to provide parking spaces. That is not what we bought into. It's not what I bought into. The solution that I would recommend, I predict that with the overbuilding of student housing that's going on right now, and with the advent of COVID and what it's doing to our world, that perhaps you look at some existing older apartment dwellings, Heritage Oaks as an example, partner with those folks, retrofit and rehab those into affordable housing. There are a number of older complexes that could be used as partnerships with this initiative that may satisfy all those needs. Affordable housing, preserving green spaces, not having to redo a community that was marketed as single-family homes. And I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have one more speaker who'd like to speak from the meeting room.
let me know if my mask makes it difficult to hear me.
Why don't you take it off? Just
Okay.
If you're okay with that, we're okay.
I'm okay with that. We all seem far apart enough. So my name is Leslie Brodigam, and I also live on Earl Drive with my husband, Keith. And I just wanted to emphasize a few data points that I came across that I think are just sort of worth emphasizing, because it seems like there is being emphasized from some of the members on the Planning Commission to say, there's sort of this question of housing density versus wide open spaces. And I just wanted to emphasize, again, that 61.1% of Patton Township lives in the Park Forest Village. I also want to emphasize that the population per square foot in Park Forest Village is 3,938 people in 2.45 square miles. The population per square mile for Patton Township is 624.1 people for land area in square miles of 24.53. So given that Park Forest Village has the highest density of any of the surrounding townships, I think we may be approaching more of an imbalance if we look at Park Forest Village and the rest of Patton Township, which, you're looking at maybe 22 other acres per square mile that may have other opportunity. The other thing I want to emphasize is that I really do appreciate the effort to come up with solutions to make affordable housing, more attainable, because it certainly is a problem, as many people have spoken to, trying to find their own first home here or whatever other living dwelling. But what I would think is really important to look at is when you look at population density, square miles, and the other townships, I don't think it's a correct approach to try to solve this problem looking at only Patton Township. And I would just request that whether it's the Center Regional Planning Agency, this really needs to be a priority of the Center region. This really needs to be a priority of the entire State College area. If you look at things like median income, rates of home ownership, there's a huge disparity between Patton Township and other townships such as College, Harris. Ferguson looks a little bit like us, but they have a much less population density per square mile. And I just think it's really important to consider all of this when you're looking at, as somebody said, retrofitting essentially small houses cut into rental properties into a neighborhood that feels like it's pretty strongly impacted and is nobody in our actual neighborhood is for this. There might be people in Patton Township who's for this, but I don't know anyone from the Park Forest Village neighborhood who suggested this or worked on this proposal. So those are some of the points I just want to emphasize, really the data points, the population density, and that this should really be a collaborative effort with the other surrounding townships if we really want to solve or at least improve affordable housing in this region. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a quick comment. We are the Patton Township Planning Commission,
I understand.
and we can't change what the others do. We can pass along through the Board of Supervisors to Center Region.
I understand that as well, but I guess my question would be, is there a way to maybe work on this in a new direction? Is it possible to initiate more of a collaborative approach if truly this is a priority in this area? I just don't think it's realistic to ask Patton Township alone to solve this problem.
We'll pass that along to the staff.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Dave Anderson online has asked to speak. Or not. Dave, did you want to say anything? Okay, Betsy also has raised her hand. Oh, there's Dave.
I was trying to unmute myself. I sent in a number of questions. Mr. Payne said that he looked at all the questions, they've all been answered. That is not correct. I think he's purposely shelving some of my questions under the table and doesn't want to have them heard.
Do you have a specific question?
I submitted an email. It'll take me a second to get the email out. I'll ask the questions if I'm permitted.
Of course. While you're doing that, Betsy, you wanted to say something?
Excuse me?
While you're looking for that, Supervisor Betsy Whitman had said she wanted to speak briefly.
Go ahead. I'll look for the questions. I have to look on my email.
First of all, to address the comments of the last speaker, I'm sorry, whose name I've forgotten. My understanding is that the COG, which is the Council of Governments, which comprises 6 of the townships, including State College, we actually will be looking at an area-wide solution to this. That's part of the long-term planning. But I will also say that the action has to start somewhere. We as Patton Township municipality do not have any recourse to enforce anything region-wide, nor does the Council of Governments, COG, have that authority. So, but I agree. It seems like Patton is right now taking the first step, and it doesn't seem fair. I actually like to look at it as Patton Township leading the way in changes that actually need to be considered and need to have some action. And I will say, the second thing I want to say is to thank immensely the Planning Commission for all the work that they've done. I have looked at affordable housing and I know how complex it is. When we charged the Planning Commission, we really didn't have any idea how much work it really was going to be. And I'd also like to give a little bit of history. The initiative for more affordable housing came out of the public comment over Patton Crossing, which many of you may know is that 30-acre multi-use development that is in the process of being developed that involves also zoning change. Many of the comments at that public hearing were about affordable housing. In fact, about 50% of them were about affordable housing. So based on that, and those comments came out of the woodwork for the most part, the supervisors at that point said no to the initial, some of the details of the stipulation of Patton Crossing, which came with a promise of 5% affordable housing to be included in this multi-use 30-acre development. And we then voted that down, and later the developers came back with an offer of 5 to up to 10% of affordable housing. So we have looked at other ways. The Planning Commission is looking at other ways. The devil is in the detail with any of these stipulations. Owner occupied is, I think, a huge area that needs to be looked at. But mostly I also want to thank people in the audience. You are eyes and ears of this township, and we rely on your observations and input. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Betsy. Much appreciated. Dave, do you have your questions?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Please proceed.
Yeah, I think I'm unmuted now. Okay. Are we okay?
Yep.
Yeah, you're unmuted. We can hear you.
I was disappointed that the 2 alternative plans were not presented along with this one, and I guess I would like to know why. You don't have to give me an answer at the moment, but it seems as though a favorite is being pushed here. Obviously, my comments are going to let you know that I'm not in favor of this whole situation, the rezoning. What type of housing does the What type of housing does the Planning Commission vision will be created when this proposed rezoning goes through? Will they be new structures? I don't believe many of the existing homes are acceptable for duplex housing without major reconstruction. I don't see that being done by many of the current owners. I would see that being done as houses turn over and non-resident, in other words, absentee landlords buy the property for speculation and turn it into duplex housing. We have not seen anything relative to the code. Are you going to allow 6-story houses now? 4-story, 3-story. We need to see more about what the code will actually be in order to make a decision. I don't think we have enough information to make a decision to provide the input. What do you expect the monthly rental for these proposed units is going to be? I think you'll find that it's going to be very, very, very high. I think you're very naive. You need to look at some of the comments and experience of people around the country in terms of what's happened. This sounds nice on paper, but I don't think it's been researched enough, quite frankly. I think it needs a lot more study in terms of what the result may be. It was said that we can eliminate student housing, but you haven't done it so far. We've got students renting housing here, absentee rentals, and nobody's enforcing that. The code is not being enforced. We've got this ugly addition on Park Lane and Park Forest. How that ever got by any commission or any approval is beyond my imagination. It's a commercial structure, period, end of story. Here it is in an R2 zone. Why did that happen? I don't have much confidence in the township or in the local code authorities being able to enact the code if it does happen, if this does happen. That was enumerated by a previous speaker. I would totally agree with him. You're not enforcing what you have now. How are you going to enforce what you have in the future? I've turned some of these questions into comments, but I think there's a lot to go. I think there's a lot of information to be disseminated to the people who are going to be affected by this, and I'll be quiet at this stage of the game.
Hi, Dave. Bill Burnett. Actually, you bring up really good questions here, and you know, I'll be the first one to say that we haven't gotten that far because the first thing is the community for this? And so far, we're hearing resoundingly, no.
And it's also a work in process.
Yeah. I mean, Dave, you've got really good questions here, and you know, not to say that you're putting the cart before the horse, but if the community is not for this particular plan, we're not going to get to the questions that you've got here. So more than likely, as I kind of feel or see this going. But you have very good questions that if this was to proceed, that need to be answered. So thank you very much for your questions.
I'd like to make one more comment, if I may, very briefly. We have a new administration in Washington. You're going to see an enforcement of the Affordable Housing Act, which is going to take you guys out of business, and we're going to have national federal zoning. So I think it's appropriate to wait until we have a new administration in Washington to see how the Affordable Housing Act is enforced. There's been a strong commitment on the Democratic platform to enforce that act.
I think we should focus on what we as a community can do and we should worry about what we as a community can do. Waiting for Washington means we'll be waiting forever.
It may be upended by the new act. Wait and see.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Appreciate your comments. Do we have any other comments, either online or in the room?
There are no others in the room.
Thank you, Doug. So we are instructed to give direction to staff as to how to proceed. Planning Commission, thought?
Well, one of the questions which you brought up is legally, how do we say it has to be owner occupied?
I think that would be a zoning consideration, right, Ken?
We haven't done it before, but we could look into it and see how we could do it. It's a possibility. I can't tell you right now that we can do it or not do it, but we'll look into it.
But personally, I think that's a stipulation that has to be in there also. And for the audience information, I live in Park Forest, and I have 3 properties, 2 next to me and 1 very close that could do that, but they won't, but they could. When we first got into this, Nicole did a fantastic job of breaking down all the various lot sizes, and that's why we wound up with this 18,000 square foot lot or larger. And a couple of us guessed at the most, out of the 130 or so, maybe 4 or 5 would do so. Maybe finish off their basement as an apartment or something, or do an addition to the back of the house or something like that. So I don't see it being 130 properties being converted into duplex. That's it for me.
Thanks, Jim.
So
Bill?
I'm sorry, Kat. So we have to give some sort of direction to the staff. I think something that you and I discussed briefly earlier is if we continue this, that I personally, as a member of the fire company, would like to see some way of tying in sprinklers being a requirement of any of this rezoning whatsoever. I would like to see that sort of tied to it. So I mean, if we can direct the staff to look into that, my assumption is that would immediately probably reduce anybody wanting to do this down. But if they did do it, I'm all for requiring sprinklers regardless. But I guess where I would say is I think we need to start with a couple of outlines based off of, you know, what Dave Anderson has provided us. You know, maybe we need to look at some of his suggestions of questions. But given the level of people's opposition to this, that maybe we need to consider tabling this particular proposal for now.
I'd like to ask Nicole or Doug to talk us through, just so that folks know, that any proposal that gets put forward, what the process would be to take it to the supervisors, to take it to the public, and the timelines around them. So will you walk us through that?
Go ahead, Nicole, if you want.
Well, when we're ready, it would need to go to the board, and the board would then set a public hearing date that would be 30 days from whenever they would want to pursue this idea, and then the public would have more time to comment that way before the board could even vote on whether or not to approve this. So, I mean, we can take more time to discuss it. It doesn't obviously have to be forwarded now. So we can have more time to go through all the comments from tonight and the emails and the survey and continue the conversation and get some more questions answered more thoroughly and then sort of revisit it. So it's ultimately up to the Planning Commission at this point.
So thank you. I asked you to do that just to reassure the audience that there's nothing imminent.
Yeah.
Right? This is a discussion at this point.
Exactly. Yep.
And it's a discovery. We're doing our due diligence to try to figure out how to solve a small piece of the affordable housing issue in the center region in our home township, as well as you know, figuring out what works best for our citizens. So I get the feeling that people think this is imminent. This is really the beginning of a discussion. I just want to reassure everyone at that point. And I think, and fellow Planning Commission members chime in, I think what we need to do is table this for a work session and have a spirited discussion about where to go next. Thoughts?
I move to table.
I agree.
Yeah, I fully agree, Kate.
All right, is that good enough, Nicole?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
All right.
Move on.
Very good. Moving on. Thank you all. Thanks to everyone online and in the room for your for the discussion. Our next item is Grays Woods Plain Community, Grays Point Phase 6B minor alteration